Hi, this is Misha, and this is going to be the first video, at least the first I'm recording. I don't know what order we'll actually publish these, where I look at some of the guns from my recent trip over to Tennessee to pick up a collection. If you'd like to see kind of just first-person style, kind of vlog style, little 15-minute kind of casual log of that trip, go over and check my personal channel, Misha, for a little more info on what happened. Anywho, on the table I have 3 Mosins. I've got a Russian 1944. I chose to show you this for a reason. Then I have a Hungarian 1953. And finally, another 1953, this one from the land of Poles, Poland. So, what do we have here? Well, in my video a bit ago, I had a Yugo reworked M44, and I had a Romanian M44. The Romanian was produced at the Cugir arsenal, and I said I would get to the Hungarians and the Polish, so here you go. First off, I wanted to talk about this Russian 1944 a bit, mostly just because it's good to have a Russian on the table. Also because this is in a laminated stock, which is pretty neat. Laminate stocks were used post-war as replacement stocks, and they were also used during the war as wartime expediencies. Lamination is a little cheaper, at least in the sense of wood requirements. You can use 3 or 4 pieces of wood or even more that are maybe high enough quality to make a single hardwood stock, which you can laminate them together. This does produce, generally speaking, a heavier stock, but also a more durable stock. That said, to make sure the laminations did not separate, they put this bolt through the wrist here. And I'm not going to say this gun is not a refurb, but I'm going to say it's a light refurb if so. In some later production Russian guns you can find with the original finishes, you know, ones from 46, 47, 48. It's weird to find a 44 like this, but if nothing else, it doesn't have the ginormous import mark on the side there. And let me see, did I check this one? Yeah, this one has the older style import mark on the tip of the barrel, right there. That's how they used to mark them, folks. I've also seen some older imports marked on the bayonet housing, and even a few marked on the rear sight underneath, which is kind of cool, but the ATF didn't like that. So yeah, this is a Russian gun. First year of standard production, second year of total production. So, Hungary, as I have called it, and some people got some reason annoyed about that, so Of course, Hungary obtained a lot of Mosins, amongst other guns, from Russia, but they also started up licensed production of miniguns. For example, they also started making the TT-33 Tokarev in Hungary, as well as the milled AK-47, the AKM, and several others. They began manufacturing the M44 Mosin-Nagant Carbine in relatively large numbers. They also made a smaller number of 9130 rifles and sniper rifles. Now, the only designation I could find for these was 48M, and I assume they used 48M rifle and 48M carbine for the M44, but yeah. Though these were adopted in 1948, they didn't go into production for some time. They had to set up at the FEG factory in Budapest. And there's a bit of conflicting information on production dates, but we've confirmed at least that they were making these from 1952 through 1955. Some sources say they began as early as 1950, but it seems like that's just when production was getting set up, and at that time they might have been using Russian guns, or at least guns built with Russian assistance. I don't know, doesn't really matter. Gives you an idea, anywho. The Hungarian gun, the 48M, is pretty much exactly like a late Russian. It has the wider sight base, modified sleeve. It has the lightning cut low wall type receiver there, which is something Russia started implementing after the war. Has its own type of stock. This one has an oil finish. And one kind of interesting change, they actually moved the front sling loop back just a little bit. Just a little bit closer to the receiver. This has full escutcheons. Whereas a wartime Russian would not have full escutcheons usually. And that's about it, folks. We don't really know production numbers. These can easily be identified by the Hungarian crest, as well as O2, which was the factory code for FEG. And they'll often have a B proof marking for Budapest. Quality is very high, as most of the European post-war Mosins were. They weren't making these under duress. These are pretty much make-work programs, and just in case, they pretty much made these and then immediately put them into storage. This one actually has a very nice trigger. Some would be used for ceremonial duties, second-line units, and also police guns. But yeah, Hungarian guns, for whatever reason, kind of show up either with mismatched or unnumbered bolts with just O2 on them, and some have been well used. We do know that they saw some use during the 1956 uprisings and such. But yeah, the Hungarian Mosin. There's not a whole lot else to say about her, but I promised I would show you one, so here you go. And then our final guy on the table, the one from Poland. Now these were made at Factory 11, which is Luxnik Radom, today FB Radom. And these were made from 1951 to 1955, so just a little bit earlier than the Hungarians. Some sources say they made them a little later. This is incorrect according to Polish sources, and I mean that sincerely. When I was researching the Polish use of the SKS and the early AKs, it was very clear that by 56, 57, these were out of production. So any guns later than that were probably refurbs or rebuilds or old stock or put together with leftover parts. I'm not going to say they didn't turn out new guns later, but I don't think they were making, like, for example, new barrels and receivers. The name I could find for these would just be Wz.44. It seems like, as I said in my AK video, when a gun was just a copy of a Russian gun, they would keep using the Russian name. It was really only when it was a Polish invention or heavy modification they would give it a Polish designation. These would have hardwood stocks. They would range from a very light blonde to just brown, and this one's a middle tier, which makes sense. This one, I don't know how it comes on camera, but it seems to be a kind of a dirty blonde, a honey colored, or a light brown. These had blued finish, of course. They also had a little bit of a different lightning cut here, the way it does in the front. It was just a machine, just a little bit different in Poland, It's a small difference though, it really is. Other than that, and another exact copy of a late Soviet M44 with the wide sight base, modified bayonet housing, standard rear sight, so on and so forth. Polish guns are known for really the best, this one also has a nice trigger, fit and finish of the Mosins. I mean, the bluing on this is very deep, very attractive. The wood stock is very smooth, very even. And oftentimes these don't really show any wear. They're pretty much made and put straight into storage. The only wear on this one is a ding in the upper handguard, and I'm sure that happened somewhere between Poland and when it got in my hands. Like the other guns from this collection, this is an early import. It's funny, and I told this in the Romanian video too, in the early 2000s, like right around the turn of the millennium, you could find guns like this in the Hungarian and the Romanian, and some of them were in mint unissued condition. You couldn't find many Chinese type 53s, and you really didn't see that many Russians. Before that, most of our Russians had come out of Finland, who didn't capture a lot of M44s. So at that time, Russian and Chinese were desirable. People kind of, you know, the Romanians and the Hungarians are just kind of there. They always did value the Polish a little more. I remember these were always pressed a little higher. When the other guns were 60 to 80 bucks in a store, a Polish would be 100 to 120, even then. Of course, a few years after that, beginning around 04, that flipped. Russian guns started to come in, I think mostly from the Ukraine. And then later, Century imported a bunch of Chinese Type 53s. Now, these weren't usually in awesome condition, but they were serviceable, and so the Type 53 became common. But the Hungarian, Romanians, and Polish just dried up. And after that one big batch 15 years ago, that was it. I mean, there hasn't really been another batch since. And of course, prices have gone up commensurate to that. Well, that's about it, guys. There's not a lot to be said about the M44 after the war. It didn't really see a lot of combat use. Saw some police use. For example, the Polish police did issue these. These were maybe used for training and ceremonial duty as well. But they're pretty much, again, just kind of a make work and to have something squirreled away just in case. So, yep. Well, I've delivered my promise on the Polish and Hungarian, and I guess it just leaves me, I need to show you a Type 53. They really don't look any different, guys, but yeah, next time one pops into my hand, I will bring her out and show you just to kind of complete the set. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. If you could, check out the link to our Patreon page. Also, if you'd like to hear about my trip, yeah, check out my personal page over at Misha. And if you haven't, check out our earlier Mosin videos. This is Misha, and we'll catch you next time.